Hello scholars, this morning we're going to go through operations of arithmetic at the grade 4 level. So the basic operations of arithmetic, of course, are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. At the grade 4 level, it's not as complicated, so we're just going to do some simple examples, and we need to know the names of the terms that we're adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing. So I'm going to go through and explain to you the proper names of each constant term, and so you need to know them. You need to know what the result is called. So let's go through those and make sure we have our bases covered. We need to know the basic definitions, the basic operations before we can do anything else. So let's go. When we're adding two numbers, so this is the symbol for adding, right? This is the symbol for adding. When we're adding two numbers, so let's say we're adding 3 and 6, and the result is 9. So we call each of these terms the addend. So 3 plus 6, 3 is an addend, 6 is also an addend. When we add them together and we get the result is called the sum. So addend plus addend give sum. Now let's say we're taking away. We're doing the opposite operation to addition, which is to subtract, to take away. So 10 take away 9, and of course the result is 1. The 10 is called the minuend. So the minuend is the bigger number, usually the bigger number from which we are taking the smaller. So we're taking the 9 from the 10. The 10 is the minuend. The 9 is the subtrahend. So the subtrahend is the smaller number that we are taking, usually from the bigger. Minuend, take away, subtrahend, and the result is called the difference. So minuend, take away, subtrahend gives the difference. So if you are asked to find the difference between two things, they are implying, or that's a clear indication you are being asked to subtract. They want the result when you take one number, one quantity, one amount from another. And at this level, it's usually the bigger amount take away the smaller amount. That is not always the case in mathematics. So just bear in mind, at this level, the bigger number is the minuend, the smaller number is the subtrahend. When we take away the small one from the big one, the result is called the difference. Now let's look at some words that could indicate that you're being asked to use the operation of addition. Now, even though we're saying that these words indicate addition, you really still will need to read the problem carefully, see how it is worded, because they might use these words to say something was added before and now they want something else, right? So read it carefully. But usually these words indicate addition. Sum. So if you're asked to find the sum of two or more numbers, remember it doesn't have to be two numbers. You can find the sum of any amount of things, any number of things. If you are asked to find the total, total means we're adding them all up. Everybody comes and we say, this is what we all have together. So in all together, increase, so if a number is increased by an amount, then we know that we're adding that amount to the original number. I should have also put the plus, right? Plus indicates that we're adding. So, sum, total, in all, how much is it in all? How many are there all together? Those indicate that we are being asked to use the operation of addition. And of course, this is the symbol. This symbol represents that operation of addition. Now let's look at some words that indicate that we might be asked to subtract. So these are the words that indicate subtraction. If you're being told one quantity is decreased, decrease means get less. So if it is decreased, it's being decreased, it's getting less. So we're taking something away from it. Minus, right? Difference. So if we're asked to find the difference, we're being asked to subtract. Usually to take the smaller quantity from the larger quantity, and we're left with the difference between them. If we're told that we need to find out how much is left back, right? If you take away something, how much is left back? Or if Marcia gave away 10 of her apples, so she's giving it away, she's losing apples, she no longer has the same amount, she's giving some to her friends, she's sharing. Or if you remove something, so all of these words, once you're getting the idea that you had a quantity, you had an amount, and you're taking something out of it, right? You're giving out, you're distributing it to friends, and you want to see how much is left. How much is left back, how much remains. Those words tell you you need to use the operation of subtraction to find out what is left back. Now, when we are multiplying, this is the symbol that we use, and we would say 6 times 4, or 6 multiplied by 4. The number that is being multiplied, or in other words, the number at the top, is called the multiplicand. Multiplicand. The number that we're using to multiply the multiplicand is called the multiplier. The result that we get when we do that operation of multiplying, the result is called the product. So multiplicand times multiplier give the product. For division, we have a quantity and we want to share it up. We want to divide it into equal parts if we can. We are not always able to divide it into exactly equal parts, and so we might be left with what we call a remainder. Sometimes we are able to divide it up into exactly equal parts, and we are left with a remainder of 0. In other words, there is no remainder. So when there is no remainder, we say that this number here is a factor of this number, and this number at the top is also a factor if there is no remainder. These are two factors of this. So the number here under the division sign is called the dividend, the amount that we're dividing up, the quantity that we're splitting up into equal parts if we can, is called the dividend. How many groups we're splitting them into, or in other words, the number that we're dividing it by, is the divisor. How many groups we're able to, how many elements are in the groups, the quotient. And if we're not able to divide it equally, then we say we get a remainder, right? So that means if we divide 19 into groups of 6, we're able to get 3 groups, but there's one left back. There's one, because we cannot get another full group of 6. So one is left back, we call this one the remainder. Right? Now, we are able to reverse these operations by doing the opposite operation. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing, the opposite of dividing is multiplying, the opposite of addition is subtraction, opposite of subtraction is addition. So if we want to check our results, we can check by reversing the process. So if we added 3 plus 6 and we got 9, and we want to check, we just want to make sure that our answer is correct, we can do the opposite operation. We can subtract the 6 from the 9 and see if we get 3. Or we can subtract the 3 from the 9 and see if we get 6. So for those of us who want to be meticulous and we want to check and make sure before we take up our books to be checked, we want to make sure first you can reverse the operation. So if you added and you got your sum and you want to check if your sum is correct, take each addend from the sum, check it up whether you're going to use your fingers or you're going to use counters or you're going to use your brain power. Just relying on your brain power. Whichever method, subtract the addend from the sum and you should get the other addend, whichever one. Do both of them and see if you get. If you want to check that your difference is correct, add the subtrahend to the difference and you should get back your minuend. So to double check, we do the opposite operation. We retrace our steps. If you want to check, you multiplied 6 times 4, right? And you want to double check to make sure that your product is correct. Divide, do the opposite of multiplication. Divide the product by the multiplier. So 25 divided into groups of 4, do we get 6 groups? Or 25 divided into groups of 6, do we get 4? So you can check by doing the reverse operation. Now, for the division, we want to make sure that 19 divided by 6 gives 3, remainder 1. We would first have to do the opposite operation of the division, 3 times 6, which would give us 18, And then this remainder that we have out here, we have to add it back to the 18, and we do get 19. So if we want to reverse the operation of division to check, if we get back our dividend, multiply the divisor and the quotient, and if there was a remainder, add the remainder back to that, and you should get your dividend. If you don't, that is an indication that you may have slipped up with a step. The answer was not correct. So that's one way of checking. Now let's look at the words that indicate to us if we're solving a problem, a worded problem. These words will give us a clue that we may be dealing with the process of division. If we are told that we're splitting something up, especially if they stress that it's into equal groups, equal number of items in each group. If they're splitting it up, cutting it up, sharing it, we're cutting up a pizza into equal slices, right? We're sharing something among children, and each child will get the same amount, the same number. That is an indication of division. If we're distributing, or if it says, how many will each person get? Those terms indicate to us that we might be dealing with division. Words that indicate multiplication. So again, if we're dealing with worded problems, and it is said a number times something, right? Or we expanded it by a certain amount, or it was doubled, tripled, or thrice something, or twice something, 4 groups of 8, for example, or 8 groups of 4, whichever way it is put. Those are indication that we're dealing with multiplication. Again, you still will need to read the problem carefully, check how it is worded to see what exactly you're being asked to do. So let us recap. Addend plus addend give sum. Minuend, take away. Subtrahend, give the difference. Multiplicand times multiplier gives product. Dividend divided by divisor gives a quotient. And sometimes if it cannot go exactly into it, there is a remainder. If it can go exactly into it, if it is a factor of the dividend, there will be no remainder or a remainder of 0. So we need to master these. These are the basic fundamental operations in mathematics. As scholars, we need to master these. They are not the only ones. They are not the only operations. And as you get more advanced in your mathematics course, you will encounter other operations, but you must master these 4 basic arithmetic operations. Practice them. Double check your answers to make sure. Just retrace your steps. Reverse the process to make sure that you did the right thing. Know your terms, and especially the result. What is the result called? Because many times in problems, they are going to say the sum, the difference, the product, the dividend, the quotient, and you should know. Just like that, you should know what they're talking about, what they're asking you to do, because you know your terms. A lot of persons believe that mathematics just has to do with numbers. Absolutely not. Many persons who fail mathematics courses They do so because they don't focus on the language aspects of mathematics, the terms, the terminology. They might know what to do, but because they're not familiar with the terms, they think they don't know what to do. So as a mathematician, you must always have your dictionary beside you. Yes, as a mathematician, your dictionary is crucial. Because many times we name things according to how they originated and what they are. So if you know the term, what the term means, you're a very great step ahead in understanding the concept and understanding what to do. Make sure you know your basic terms, your 4 basic operations of arithmetic, practice, and I'll see you next time.